there's an article I found. It's in the Omaha World Herald. So, in fairness, I don't know if the Omaha World Herald is really that big of a website or a newspaper, but I found it on Twitter. It's got to be something. And our friends in North Dakota spoke to the Omaha News Herald. So, headline, Nebraska law enforcement, Keystone XL pipeline foes prepare for possible protests. So right there in the headline, they're already trying to, put out the boogeyman. Oh, those protesters are coming. So law enforcement, we got to prepare. Let me read you some of this. Lincoln, Nebraska. When Morton County Sheriff Kyle Kirkmeyer crested a hill near Cannonball Creek last August, he knew he was in trouble. A group of protesters had blocked a private road used by workers building the Dakota Access Pipeline across his North Dakota county, halting the construction work. Propaganda already. 11 protesters were arrested that day. It was the first of months of demonstrations, some violent, that quickly overwhelmed Kirkmeyer's 33-member sheriff's office. Yeah, they didn't look overwhelmed to me when they were shooting water cannons, rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas at unarmed water protectors. They didn't look so they didn't look that overwhelmed to me. Frankly, they look like troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, not an overwhelmed police force. So, what began as a couple of small protest camps, yes, small protest camps, thousands of people from around the world, small protest camp, on the Standing Rock Indian Reservation eventually swelled into an international incident. So they're making a peaceful, historic protest movement into a James Bond movie. The international incident it became. Now, the sheriff thinks Nebraska will be next for a similar mega demonstration. I do, Kirkmeyer said. With the recent resurrection of the Keystone XL pipeline project by President Donald Trump, the group that led the opposition to the pipeline, Bold, Nebraska, has pledged to renew its fight. On its website, the grassroots group is not only asking pipeline opponents to write letters and attend rallies and court hearings, but also risk arrest. Quote, I pledge to participate in peaceful direct action that may result in my arrest should construction begin on Keystone XL pipeline, it states. Jane Kleeb, who launched Bold, Nebraska, said she doesn't envision Nebraska having the massive and violent protests that erupted over the now finished Dakota Access Pipeline. So this is what this outlet just did. Maybe they spoke to Jane Kleeb. They said Jane Kleeb, who launched Bold, Nebraska, says she doesn't envision Nebraska having the massive and violent protests that erupted over the now finished Dakota Access Pipeline. I would take a guess that Jane Kleeb did not use the word violent protest to describe Standing Rock. I'm thinking that this journalist basically said violent protest and attributed it to her. Listen to that. Jane Kleeb, who launched Bold, Nebraska, said she doesn't envision Nebraska having the massive and violent protests that erupted over the now finished Dakota Access Pipeline. This is how the corporate media works. This is how propaganda works. The neutral journalists utter in words and phrases to make it seem like something that's not violent, like that's something that they've never themselves actually personally gone to cover in person, is violent. And then they attribute it to other people. It's unbelievable. Jane Kleeb, I'm asking you, did you call the Standing Rock protests violent? I'm going to guess you didn't. So, Jane Kleeb, who launched Bold, Nebraska, said she doesn't envision Nebraska having the massive and violent protests that erupted over the now finished Dakota Access Pipeline. Thousands of Native Americans and environmentalists poured into protest there. Nearly 700 people have been arrested, and about $40 million has been spent to date on law enforcement costs. Yeah, so let's not talk about what that $40 million that went to law enforcement costs actually was spent on. Machete guns, AR-15s, freezing water, grenades. We got the bills to prove it. We got the receipts to prove what they were spending money on. They weren't spending money on law enforcement. This was spending money on police terrorism towards unarmed people. And propaganda, by the way, because it was a big PR effort that went into the Morton County Sheriff sending out these ridiculous videos with highly edited footage to make unarmed water protectors look like they were violent. But Kleeb said her group wants to be ready if the pipeline is eventually approved in the state. Quote, "We're certainly not setting up a big protest camp like at Standing Rock. We've made that clear to partners. But we do have supporters, including landowners, who want that option to participate in civil disobedience," she said. "To be sure, such actions are probably a long way off." Says who? Again, this journalist is basically inserting his language and his bias. Says who? To be sure, such actions are probably a long way off. How does he know? Has he spoken to activists? Does he know if there's plans for people to set up camps in Keystone? I do, because I know there's already camps being set up there, because I have sources, and I actually report and contact people. To be sure, such actions are probably a long way off. With propaganda like this, I think they're actually sooner than you think, especially since there was just a spill in the Keystone pipeline that the corporate media won't tell people about. I think a spill in a pipeline that's not even done being built, that the President of the United States, through propaganda, says, great for energy independence, great for America, make America great again. No, make America sane again, because this bullshit and propaganda needs to stop. Listen, there's still two lawsuits going in terms of Dakota Access Pipeline. I always tell you the truth. It doesn't look good. The oil is flowing. So that, as of now, is a lost battle. The war is not over, folks, and I'm going to keep reporting on this. However, the continued propaganda, this outlet, I guarantee you, this outlet that is writing this propaganda piece about these protesters and this violence possibly coming to Nebraska, and I will put the link, by the way, in the YouTube video. People are asking for the sources. You'll get the links to these stories once we convert this to YouTube. I don't think you're going to see a story from them today about this spill of Keystone from the weekend. Hey, if you want the hat, makeamericasane.com. That's makeamericasane.com. Full disclosure, it's my uncle's company, but I'm promoting my uncle. So, yeah, I guess I have a conflict of interest, but I like the hat too. So, it might take 2 years to cross all those hurdles and start construction. They're talking about lawsuits in relation to Keystone. One landowner on the proposed route said he's among those willing to be arrested to fight the project. Terry Van Housen, a 64-year-old married father of two, said if the groundwater underneath his farm and his 10,000-head cattle feedlot near Stromsburg were contaminated by an oil spill, he'd be ruined. Quote, "The water source right underneath of us is our living," Van Housen said. "Going to jail or getting in front of a bunch of people and telling them what I think, I would do anything like that." Law enforcement and county officials interviewed say there have been some discussions about what might be coming, but they declined to say whether any protest control training is underway. Protest control training. Hey, how about you have a training on not to be a brutal, terroristic police force like we saw in North Dakota? That's the training that needs to happen. I'd like to see some sensitivity training, some anger management training, some de-escalation training, rather than, hey, how do we work this new bazooka gun we just brought in? And contaminated food. Good point, Carlene. Taylor Gage, a spokesman for Governor Pete Ricketts, said that commenting on such security precautions would, quote, jeopardize those plans. These aren't security preparations. These are brute force police brutality preparations. The Nebraska State Patrol is well aware of what happened in North Dakota. Patrol spokesman Mike Meyer wrote in an email and regularly trains for contingencies such as protests and natural disasters. Meyer said that recent purchases by the patrol of the sort of non-lethal devices used in crowd control, such as impact sponges and rubber ball blast and peri spray grenades, were not out of the ordinary and are part of the agency's regular equipment purchases. Breaking news! They are ordering pepper spray, rubber bullets, and impact sponges to have dialogue with upcoming protests of the Keystone Pipeline. So for those of you still not over what happened at Standing Rock, and I don't blame you, I'm not either, they're already ordering impact sponges, rubber ball blast, and pepper spray grenades to meet you in Nebraska. Ain't this country great? I love when police protects the citizens. I mean oil companies. York County Sheriff Dale Radcliffe, whose county is on the proposed route of the Keystone XL, said he doesn't know what to expect. So far, local pipeline events have been peaceful, said Radcliffe, who believes any protests are months away. I got news for you. I think you're wrong. Quote, we've talked about it, but so far that's about all, the sheriff said. Hopefully, if something happens, we'll have time to set something up. So, I'm not going to read the rest. You could read the link when I post it. So, let me explain what's going on here. In addition to corporate media ignoring that one of the most controversial pipelines in America that President Trump is trying to ram through is already leaking, is already spilling before it's even done being built on, constructed. So they're ignoring that. And by the way, I think they should be covering Syria extensively. I think they could fit in a 5-minute segment on Keystone already leaking. And correct me if I'm wrong. If you've seen this in the corporate media and I just missed it, let me know. But I'm pretty sure you didn't. So on one end, they're ignoring that, just like they ignored the Kalamazoo River spill years ago, just like they ignored covering the Dakota Access Pipeline. And when they did cover it, it was only to come down and hopefully get a scene out of cowboys and Indians with police and veterans shooting at each other. That's what they were hoping for. So they're ignoring that, but then you have these propaganda pieces that are essentially what the media does, is they receive emails and press releases from the police department as well as government officials like the governor, and then they just reissue it into a story. And then other people pick up on that story. I don't do press releases. I was offered a job in public relations years ago for a lot of fucking money, by the way. Like, a lot. And I turned it down. Not because I'm so great. I like money. But I can't be good at my job if I've sold my soul. A lot of these people have, though. So, propaganda pieces to make it seem like those violent protesters from Standing Rock, those hippie dippies who don't clean themselves or shower and do drugs and are violent and throw water bottles at police and throw feces at police. You remember that one? They're coming to Nebraska. That's what this is. It's propaganda. And I'm a journalist. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you do go to Nebraska, this is what you're in for, folks. I'm not telling you not to. This is what you're in for. Propaganda. And they've already bought rubber bullets, sponges. What was that? Impact sponges, rubber ball blasts, and pepper spray grenades. So I don't think they're there to have, green tea with those evil protesters. I will dig around. I'll continue reporting about this spill from Keystone. I will continue reporting and spotlighting propaganda. And you should call these outlets that are issuing the propaganda and tell them that you expect them to actually be journalists and to report facts and not propaganda issued to them by the police. Because it's their planet too, and it's their water too. Thank you for watching. I'm actually going to be going on next to youtube.com/TYTpolitics. That's TYT Politics on YouTube. I'll be live there shortly. I'm going to be doing a story. I just wrote a story that's now up on the Young Turks Medium page about President Trump's machete that he's taking to the EPA and how it's going to further harm Flint and East Chicago, Indiana. So I hope the 523 watching now will move over to youtube.com/TYTpolitics. About 10 minutes, I'll be on there. Thanks, guys.